My next guest is an MMA phenom, and in a few years, he's going to be competing at the absolute highest levels of MMA. And I'm interviewing him right now. He is the Razor, Robbie Ring. Robbie, say hi to everybody who searched for you on YouTube in 2027 to find out about who this UFC challenger is. Say hi to your new fans.
What's up, everybody? Good to be on the show, Tyler. I always love being on the show and talking to you.
Yes, sir. Well, Robbie, I wanted to level set with you because when I think of you, I think of like one of the most exciting up and coming fighters on all of the East Coast. I know you're a Virginia guy and you fight in Virginia and Tennessee, but what you're able to accomplish, what you've been able to do, like I feel like you're at a point in your career where more and more people are starting to take notice of what you did. Your fight against Jacob Kilburn, that it probably assuaged a lot of the doubters out there. I'd love for you to kind of set the table for me for the Kilburn fight. That was a huge fight for you against a PFL and a UFC veteran. You're able to finish this guy in the second round. I'd love to get your take on how that fight unfolded.
Yeah, so Kilburn on paper, Kilburn was my first real test at the professional level. He had the experience. But when I watched him fight, I knew what I was capable of, and I knew that it was a great matchup for me. Just because Kilburn was very striking heavy, and I knew that I had more than him on the ground. But then I kind of went in there and was letting my hands go on him and got to showcase a little bit of striking too. So there was really not any part of that. I think that I dominated pretty much every aspect of that fight. And it kind of catapulted me up in the rankings, which is what we wanted. I thank Kilburn for taking that fight because for him taking that fight, especially right after he got cut from the UFC, it made a big step in my career as a professional.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Jacob Kilburn: he's a fighter. That guy will fight anybody, and it's one of those things where it's unfortunate somebody had to take a loss, but hey, that's the game that we play. Robbie, it was a masterful performance. I think you ticked off a lot of boxes in terms of your development. When you look back on it, were there any things? Was there anything about that fight where you're like, a couple of things I still want to brush up on? Like when you look back and you and your coaches, your teammates, you're looking at the footage out there. Like, are you mostly happy with everything that you see, or are there a couple of things that you saw that you wanted to improve upon?
Yeah. So anybody that knows me knows that I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect in every fight, and sadly, that never happens for me. It's never perfect. There was a few things in that fight that I wish that I didn't do. There was a few things that I wish that I could do more of. Number one, I went for an ankle lock with 30 seconds left in the first round and ended up on my back for 10 seconds with Kilburn having me in a head and arm choke. It wasn't close. I just thought that I heard my corner give me they say something when there's 30 seconds left. I was like, I might as well try to get him out of here in the first. And so I went for an ankle lock. Really not the worst thing for me to try to do, but I wasn't successful with it. Put me in a bad position. And then I wish that I could have done a little bit more damage with my ground and pound. I know I had tons of control time in that fight, but it didn't seem like I did as much damage as I wanted to while I had him down. Those are things that, I've been working on the past few months and trying to get better at, and I believe that I have. And then, in my upcoming fight, I'm going to go in there and put it all to use.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this upcoming fight and kind of just where you are in your career. You would not believe, Robbie, the amount of DMs I get and messages I get from people saying like, Robbie Ring, I want to fight that guy. Like there are a lot of people that look at you, they want to have that opportunity against you, and I can understand why. You're a big deal. A lot of people want to watch you fight, and a win over a guy like you, that means something. I know like you're an up and coming dude, and I know that you're thinking about other things, but it's also one of those things where it's like you start stringing together wins, people are going to notice, and people, this is a dog eat dog kind of game. And I'd love to get your thoughts. Like, how many opportunities do you get? Like, how many of these like DMs do you get and opportunities from promoters that are asking you to fight?
It's actually it's kind of weird how all of it works is because sometimes people say that they want to fight me and then a promoter reaches out to them and then you don't ever hear anything back from them, and then there's so much drama going on between different promotions, and you know there's a lot of politics in MMA fighting.
Mm.
Me personally, on the regional level, I don't really see anybody that I wouldn't fight.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, I feel like I'm close to making it to the big show. I'm at 5-0. I feel like with another win here coming up, that I'm right there. I mean, I've already had an opportunity to fight in the UFC short notice, which I had to turn down because of a short weight cut,
Mm-hmm.
having to travel across the country. It didn't work out. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and just fight somebody that's 1-0 or 2-0. It's not really going to do anything for me to where I'm trying to get to. Um, if somebody was, 6 wins, 7 wins, I would take that fight because
Mm-hmm.
you beat somebody with 6 or 7 wins, that's going to get you into the big show. So a lot of these guys that's calling me out is you're like 1-0, 2-0 pros, and then there's a few veterans in there who fight at different weight classes that's calling me out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's definitely not smart for me to do. Fight 10 pounds over the weight that I'm currently fighting at. And it's not too smart right now at this point in my career.
Robbie, talk to me about long term. I know you have competed at bantamweight and also featherweight. Like long term, is there a class that you want to stick in, or do you want to maintain that flexibility between 35 and 45?
This is something that I've been talking to my management company about, and my coaches. Um, 145 right now feels good,
Mm-hmm.
especially here at the regional level. I think that, um, in my opinion, I believe that I'm one of the top 145ers on the East Coast of the United States. So I'm fine fighting at 145 right now. When I get to the big show, the UFC, some of those 145ers are studs. They're a little bit bigger than me, a little bit more dense in their muscles. So we might reevaluate then and might see if I can't work my way back down to 135.
I think that's really smart. I think you're wise to have that sort of outlook because it's kind of a double edged sword. Yes, there are some guys that are huge at 145 pounds, to your point. But also, when you think about 135 pounds, number one, that's quite a cut for somebody like you. And then number two, especially in the UFC, you're talking about the deepest division
Yep.
that they have. And how many opportunities are you going to get? You might be an early prelim fight in bantamweight, but in featherweight, maybe not necessarily in the UFC. It just kind of depends. And I think you're smart to kind of weigh those options. It makes total sense to me.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me a little bit about this upcoming fight that you have. It's in Chattanooga, and you're going to be fighting a guy. His name is Corey Dulaney. I don't really know a whole lot about your opponent, but I'd love to get your thoughts on what do you see when you look at this guy, and how did this bout kind of come together against Dulaney?
Yeah, so Delaney wasn't, excuse me, Delaney wasn't my first opponent
Mm-hmm.
that I had scheduled for this Chattanooga event. And what was supposed to happen was I was supposed to be fighting Zach Hicks out of Nashville MMA for the 145-pound title at Aries Fighting Series. Zach got called up to fight in PFL for their tournament that they do. So he messaged me. He's very respectful about it. He told me what was going on. Zach's already competed in that tournament, and he came up a little bit short, put together a pretty good performance, but ended up coming a little short. So they found Corey Dulaney to step in. Delaney, I think that on paper I'm better than him everywhere, striking, ground, wrestling, everything. But he is dangerous. He's won a few pro fights.
Mm-hmm.
He's knocked people out. So I have to take him serious. I've been working hard in preparation for him. I just don't foresee too many ways that he can beat me.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's got that puncher's chance, and he does have power, and he is an athletic guy. So I've been taking him very serious.
I have seen amazing prospects, undefeated guys like you go into fights like this and maybe not take their opponent as seriously as they should, and they get caught. I've
Yep.
seen it time and time again. When what are some of the things that you want to see out of yourself? When you go into this cage, when you go up, you're a ticket mover. People are paying money to watch you fight. What are some of the things that you're trying to tick off? Like, what are some of the things that you want to show your supporters when they come out to watch you fight here in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. So, fighting a guy like Kilburn, one slip up, he's going to put you to sleep. So I had to fight a very, really clean technical fight, staying protected. But with Dulaney, I want to go in there and scrap a little bit this time. I at the end of the day, I am a fighter and I fight because I like to get in there and I like to hit people and I like them to hit me a little bit. So I think that this fight, I'm going to show the fans that I'm capable of going in there and scrapping. Of course, still being technical because we've been working a lot on my stand up, but I'm wanting to put some hands on Dulaney and try to knock him out this fight.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see. I have one kind of final question for you, and it's simply this: at this point in your career, I think number one, I think you're very intelligent and very methodical. I talk to a lot of young people all the time, and I don't always like get that sense of maturity from them that I get from you. And I think you're wise for like picking your matchups the way that you have. Does it kind of like, I don't know if piss you off's the right word, but do you kind of like laugh when people in the media or other fighters, this is like a business where we're constantly throwing mud at each other. That's just kind of the way it is. And people look at you, and I'm sure you've heard it before. People are like, "Oh, this guy's a crusher. He's not really fighting anybody. He beat Jacob Kilburn. That's like one guy that he's fought that's decent, but he's really not anybody that I should take seriously." And like when you hear stuff like that, when you check out other podcasts or you hear people in the media talk like that, does that kind of like make you smile? Does it kind of piss you off? Like, how do you respond to that kind of noise?
Oh, it definitely doesn't piss me off. My mom and dad's always told me that, the more people saying your name, the more your name's going to get out there. So I honestly like when they say my name, especially on these podcasts, because then what happens is whoever's watching the podcast is going to go straight to Google and look up Robbie Ring MMA, go to my Tapology page and see, I've had a lot of fights, amateur and pro, and I've not came even close to losing a fight yet. Whether those guys were, top of the line opponents or not, I've done what I was supposed to do to everybody. And I have fought some decent people, amateur and, pro, and nobody's came close to beating me yet. And we haven't yet found that man that's going to do that. So people can keep talking, saying that I ain't fought anybody. They'll eventually get their time to fight me too. But I've got one goal in mind, and that's making it to the UFC. These guys can stay at the regional shows and calling each other out, but I feel like I'm destined for bigger things than that.
I completely agree, Robbie. I can't wait to watch you perform here in a couple of weeks. Is there a pay per view that people can purchase if they aren't local to Tennessee?
Yeah, so Spectation Sports is putting on the event. And what I actually do to make it easier for people is I chain my RobbieRing.com link with the Spectation Sports link. So if you go to RobbieRing.com a day before the event, it'll take you straight to the pay per view link just to make it easier for people to find it.
Okay, perfect. So there you go. I will go ahead. And if you're lazy, just go into the description of this video. Robbie's link to his website where you can purchase that pay per view will be right there. And Champ, I want to give you the final word. If there's anyone that you would like to thank or any sponsors you need to talk about, sir, I'd like for you to have the opportunity to do that before I let you go.
Yeah. So first off, all the glory to God. He's kept me safe. He's kept my mind sharp. And he's just, I owe everything to him. So glory to God for everything that I have. Big shout out to my team always, Ring Combat Sports. My parents, Kim and Greg Ring, built me up from the ground up to what I am today. So thank you, all my teammates, my beautiful fiance. After this fight, come out with the win and then go get to marry the love of my life in July. So I'm excited about that. And then just a few of my sponsors I want to give a shout out to. I want to give a shout out to Varney Construction, Chris Fox Realty, Into You Hemp Company, RNC Towing, and there's many more, Pioneer Collision. If I'm forgetting anybody, I'm sorry. I'm going off the top of my head. Thank you all so much for your sponsorships of me and helping me chase my dream. And thank you to you, Tyler. I'll be posting pictures of my mom's basement MMA rash guard as soon as it gets here. And I always enjoy being on your show. You run a fine podcast, and I love being a part of it.
Well, thank you, sir. And shameless plug for me, the link to my store. I do a terrible job promoting my own clothing line, but that'll be in the description for this too. Robbie, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Yes, sir.